It's April, and that means it's time for my annual but not actually annual retrospective of a Dragon Ball game. I started working on this video quite late, so I needed to find a game with Dragon Ball content that was short, but also didn't make me want to put my head through a window. So that means it's time for... Released for the PlayStation 2 and GameCube at different points in 2002 and 2003, Dragon Ball Z Budokai kicked off a revival of sorts for the franchise's video game presence. It was the first home console game in 5 years, coming off the back of objective masterpieces like Final Bout and Ultimate Battle 22. The game was developed by Dimps, who have since gone on to develop more Dragon Ball games like the other Budokai style games and the Xenoverse series, among other smash hits outside of the franchise. Since its initial release, Budokai was bundled with Budokai 3 in a HD collection for PS3 and Xbox 360 in 2012. The whole trilogy is remembered fondly by fans, but I want to find out if that's because the original game is genuinely good, or if people are mainly remembering Budokai 3. Dragon Ball Z Budokai has 3 main game modes: a story mode, a tournament mode, and a secret unlockable mode. It also has duel and practice modes, but those are pretty self-explanatory. So let's head straight into the story mode to see how they condensed 291 episodes into a single PS2 game. Budokai's story mode kicks off at the very beginning of Dragon Ball, with Raditz showing up at Kame's house and kidnapping Gohan. Okay, so Budokai actually begins at the start of Dragon Ball Z, with a flashback showing Goku defeating Piccolo at the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament. And right off the bat, the models look... interesting. This was the first 3D Dragon Ball game since Final Bout on the PS1, and with this being one of the steps in the transition from this to this, I'll let it slide. But I will say that these are very similar to the first wave of Dragon Ball Z Fortnite skins. Raditz kidnaps his nephew, so Goku and Piccolo give chase to confront him. This is the first fight of the game, and it's here that we get our first exposure to the gameplay of the Budokai series. Budokai is a 2D fighting game featuring 3D character models and stages. While this was also the case with Final Bout, in Budokai you can pivot around your opponent and more fully utilise the 3D environment. If you time it right, you can avoid an attack and exploit your opponent's opening, making the fights more methodical at times, similar to the Tekken games. Each character has their own list of combos and super attacks that you can perform through button combinations, but in my opinion these feel clunky compared to newer fighting games which use quarter circle inputs. You have your classic supers like Goku's Kamehameha and Frieza's Death Beam, but then you have the random ass original attacks like Piccolo's Instant Kill Quick and Vegeta's Final Bash. No, not Final Flash, that's a completely different thing. If Vegeta pulled out the Final Bash on Earth, we'd have a completely different story. A lot of the attacks are copy and pasted onto different characters, with each character getting maybe 1 or 2 attacks with unique animations. Every character has a Capsule Trail, which is how super attacks, equipment and other moves are equipped. Different capsules take up a different number of slots, so when building a character you need to weigh up your options. For example, you can give your opponent heart disease if you want to, but you won't have as many attacks to hit them with. But this consideration goes out the window as soon as you find a breakthrough capsule, which lets you equip all of a character's moves at once. Carrying on with the story, after Goku's fight with Raditz, there's a minigame where you have to keep Raditz in position while Piccolo charges up his special beam cannon. I love this. I know it's only a 10-second minigame, but it kind of enhances the experience for me in a weird way. It's more difficult than you'd expect to keep Raditz in place, so you're frantically spinning the analog stick to make sure that Piccolo's attack hits. It emphasises the desperation of the situation, and I just think it's funny that it was included. After Goku and Raditz are killed, the game summarises the story up until Goku fights Nappa after being wished back to life. The Saiyans have laid waste to the Z fighters, with Yamcha, Tien, Chaozu and Piccolo all giving their lives to defend the Earth. Goku's filled with rage and ready to avenge his friends.
Oh, shiver my timbers! Shut up, man!
Yeah, the localization of Budokai's dialogue isn't great, which leads to some unintentionally hilarious scenes. By the way, the reason that I'm playing with Japanese audio isn't because I'm a sub purist, it's actually because the English dub was only included on the American versions of Budokai 1, and the same is true for the HD re-release in 2012. The Saiyan Saga continues with Goku taking out Nappa and fighting Vegeta, but instead of the iconic "even a low-class warrior can surpass an elite if he works hard enough" line, Goku references David and Goliath, like from the Bible, which implies that Christianity exists within the Dragon Ball universe, And now I need to know where Jesus sits on the hierarchy of gods and angels. We see Vegeta's Great Ape transformation in a cutscene, but it's not an actual fight, which I'm more than okay with after the horror that Sparking Zero had waiting for me. After Vegeta's tail is cut off, Gohan steps up to fight and helps land the Spirit Bomb. Goku begs Krillin to spare Vegeta's life, who then retreats. The next story picks up immediately after Vegeta's defeat, showing the remaining Z fighters preparing to leave for Namek and Goku's recovery. The next playable section takes place while Goku's training in his ship on his way to Namek. Goku mentally trains against a memory of Vegeta, but this is actually a hidden tutorial section. The practice is separated into 3 sections. You have to deflect 15 ki blasts, enter burst mode a few times, and then you have to use what you've learned to defeat the memory of Vegeta after your health has been lowered. I think this is a really clever way of teaching the player about the game's mechanics without disrupting the flow of the story. Presenting the player practicing the game in the context of Goku training to face the Ginyu Force is essentially the video game equivalent of hiding your dog's medicine in a slice of cheese. And while I've praised this, I think this would have worked better if it was placed during the Earthcast's preparation for the Saiyan invasion. This lets us play as someone other than Goku and takes place much earlier in the story. That way you aren't just winging it against Nappa and Vegeta. But criticism aside, I think this is a great way to bring the tutorial into the story. Goku arrives on Namek just after Recoome has a respectful discussion with Gohan. While the models and graphics may be unpolished, I wasn't expecting the cutscenes to be this good. There are several scenes and shots taken directly from the anime. You have your classic scenes like Vegeta fighting Recoome on Namek and having his arm broken by 18 on Earth, but there are others that you wouldn't expect, like Goku flexing out of his casts in the hospital, or Bulma phoning Master Roshi from Namek. The Namek saga continues with Goku fighting Recoome and Captain Ginyu before having his body stolen. And after Goku gets his body back, we head straight into the confrontation with Frieza. But it was here that I started having an issue with the capsule system in the story. As the story progresses, your character's equipped moves tend to change in between fights, which is really annoying if you haven't noticed and you're trying an Old Faithful combo and it just doesn't work. It's like if you were playing FighterZ and the game took half of Goku's moveset away from you. After Frieza kills Krillin, Goku becomes a Super Saiyan and we face off against Frieza on a dying planet Namek. This cutscene looks great, but I don't love the fact that Super Saiyan constantly drains the ki bar, which you also use for super attacks, ki blasts and blocking. If anything, it makes starting out transformed feel like a handicap. Super Saiyan or not, we defeat Frieza and Goku's left stranded on a doomed planet. Once again, the game skips over a sizable portion of the story through cutscenes. It goes from Goku fighting Frieza on Namek, to a cutscene explaining Trunks fighting Mecha Frieza and his warning about the androids, to Goku fighting Android 19. And then it goes straight to Piccolo fighting in Perfect Cell after fusing with Kami. If you think I'm skipping over the story, just think about how it felt to play this.
Is that it?
We follow Piccolo through his fight with Android 17, and then we move to Goku fighting Perfect Cell at the Cell games. I don't even know why Goku gave up. If he just spammed the instant transmission Kamehameha like I did, he would have been fine. Goku asks Gohan to step up and fight Cell. After their initial fight, Android 16 has some words for Gohan. God, I hate numbers divisible by 4. Gohan's new transformation completely outclasses Cell, backing him into a corner, after which he decides to self-destruct to take everyone with him. Goku steps in with the save, but Cell returns stronger than ever and easily dispatches Trunks, setting off Vegeta. Gohan finishes Cell with the Father-Son Kamehameha, saving the Earth and capping off the game's story. After finishing the Android saga, you can select story mode again and play through some newly unlocked battles. Most of the new story content consists of playing through the same saga from a different perspective. These don't really add much in the grand scheme of things. In the Saiyan Saga you play as Piccolo, and in the Namek and Android sagas you play as Vegeta. So your experience here consists of which is fun, but at the end of each saga you get to play through a secret what if where the arc's antagonist wins. The Saiyan Saga has you complete several fights as Vegeta without recovering health in between. At the end, Yajirobe brings up Nappa, leading to Vegeta having his own Krillin moment and going Super Saiyan. Which feels kind of out of character considering in the original timeline Vegeta killed him himself. In the Namek Saga, Frieza wins and blows up the planet, but the soundtrack in the HD version was replaced due to the Kenji Yamamoto plagiarism scandal. and as a result, Frieza destroying Namek is accompanied by the most upbeat song they could find. And the Android Saga What If has Cell accidentally absorb Krillin instead of 18, transforming into this. I'm sorry if you don't find this appealing, ladies, but this is what peak male performance looks like. You play as Cell to fight some of the remaining Earthlings, after which Cell wakes up from a nightmare, saying that 10 days might be too long to spend alone waiting for the Cell games. I didn't think that Budokai's story mode was ever going to replace the original anime or manga, but it's a fun addition for existing fans, and the what ifs are genuinely funny. When you're done with the story mode and fighting your friends or the computer in duel mode, you can try your hand at the tournament mode. Budokai's tournaments are split into 3 difficulty modes: Novice, Adept, and Advanced, with each difficulty adding an extra fight to the bracket. The only stage that's used for the tournament mode is the World Tournament stage, which has a ring out mechanic that you can't turn off. And to top it off, the CPU is programmed with one main objective. After beating the Novice tournament, you can buy the Adept difficulty from Mr. Popo's shop. After the Adept difficulty, you unlock Mr. Satan, and you can buy a new mode from the shop as well as the Advanced difficulty. And after beating the Advanced tournament, you unlock Great Saiyaman. And with this single character, Budokai officially has more Buu Saga content than Burst Limit. The shop mode is where you can edit the skills equipped to your characters and spend your tournament winnings with Mr. Popo. You can buy things from several categories like equipment and attacks, but everything in the shop is randomized, so you could potentially spend all of your Zenny without even getting the skill you want. I just know for a fact that there's at least one person out there whose gambling addiction began with Mr. Popo. Speaking of gambling, the shop also has the chance to give you a Dragon Ball. Once you collect all 7, you can summon Shenron and receive 3 breakthrough capsules of your choice. The final secret game mode is the Legend of Mr. Satan, which you unlock by buying it from Mr. Popo's shop. It's a challenge mode consisting of back-to-back fights where you can only play as Mr. Satan. Some of them have special conditions like a time limit. It makes it a fun extra challenge mode that gives credit to the rightful savior of Earth. While I did criticize Burst Limit for not including the Buu Saga, it seems like Budokai has a genuinely good reason. At the time of Budokai's inception, a Dragon Ball home console game hadn't been released since Final Bout due to the game selling poorly and experiencing a lukewarm reception. At a panel in 2019, the game's producer, Daisuke Uchiyama, said that they began working on Budokai in secret without telling Shueisha, because they'd seen the success of the recent Fist of the North Star game for the PS2, and they wanted to target nostalgic fans who grew up reading Dragon Ball. When the Jump editorial department found out about Budokai's development, they had Uchiyama show them his progress, and they actually told him to scrap the project. They restarted development from the ground up, remaking models and game modes several times. They also struggled getting the game licensed, with the international licenses also requiring translated versions of the game. But it turns out that all of these delays actually caused Budokai's release to align with the release of the Dragon Box DVDs and the special 3-in-1 re-release of the manga. Dragon Ball Z Budokai sold extremely well in Japan, with it reaching over 500,000 units. But what shocked the development team even more was its explosive success overseas, with it selling over 2 million copies in the US alone. Considering the number of times that the development team had to restart their work on the game and having it constantly rejected, we're probably lucky that the game even reached the Android Saga. And looking at the insane impact that this had on Dragon Ball games going forward, I think I can cut Budokai some slack for not including the Buu Saga. If you look at Dragon Ball Z Budokai today, it's aged terribly. It's janky as fuck, and the story mode is barely a best hits of the story arcs that it does choose to cover. But this represents a turning point for Dragon Ball video games. The only other games in the series that were coming out at the time were for portable systems like the Game Boy Color and Advance. It's got the foundations of a decent enough fighting game for the time, and the cutscenes are a fun homage to the series. 5 out of 10, but at least it has a good reason for cutting the Buu Saga.